In plain English, most of them are on the verge of a burnout. Today, our guest is Michael Robbs, a prominent English teacher, teacher trainer, and communication coach with rich experience in teaching adults. Michael, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Michael, why would a teacher feel exhausted? What is it? What is I mean, everybody uses this word, but what exactly is a burnout?
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a good question. What is it? I'm sure you, like me, Dimitri, and probably all of our colleagues, occasionally get what we call the Sunday blues. And that's that feeling on Sunday when you're just not feeling up to the next day, not feeling like starting school on Monday morning. And it happens to all of us, I think. We all get that Sunday blues. Except this teacher burnout is a lot bigger than that. It's like the Sunday blues every day. I think it's because the truth is most of us teachers, we're perfectionists. Do you know what I mean? We're high achievers, we're called. In other words, we don't really work for money. Of course we do, but the thing that motivates us is the value we feel we're adding to people's lives. And I think that means that we have a real tendency to overwork sometimes and invest too much of ourselves in our job. We care a lot. And this can lead us to burnout. Over the past few years, we've seen it more and more. I've heard about it a lot more. I've recently heard about a school owner suffering from burnout. I have a friend in the UK who was a headmaster and he suffered from burnout and he quit to become a postman.
That's it's a dramatic change.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Has he changed his mind about it?
No, he's feeling much better. He has much more quality of life. He's feeling a lot happier. And I've asked him, why, what happened? And he's described it to me. And can I sort of share what he's described and tell you what I've heard from other
absolutely,
people?
Yes.
So it seems to be this sort of feeling of exhaustion. You're just too tired to continue. You don't get enough sleep anymore. You're irritable. And that can often lead to people overeating or junk eating or even, drinking as a sort of comfort. I haven't experienced that element, but I have experienced the feeling of cynicism, that sort of feeling of detachment where you stop caring so much. You start withdrawing a little bit and you stop collaborating with your colleagues. I remember feeling that about 15 years ago after I'd been teaching kids for 10 years. And I've started feeling much more detached from my experience and collaborated a lot less and cared a lot less. And I realized that it was time to make a change. Another aspect of burnout is this inefficiency. You stop being so productive, probably because you just lack confidence. We start to doubt ourselves. We think maybe we're not making a difference. We're not doing enough. And we start to lose our inspiration. We start feeling like, it just doesn't make a difference. And that's terrible for a teacher because I don't know about you, but what motivates me is feeling like I make a difference, feeling like I add some value to people's lives. So if you're feeling all of these things or some of these things, you might be heading for a burnout. Does that make sense?
I'm sure that lots of people have shared these feelings one way or another, either during the lockdown or even before that. And unfortunately, it seems to be quite common. And maybe later on we can talk about quiet quitting, which actually might, one way or another, be related to burnout.
If I can just interrupt you there, let's talk about quiet quitting now. I mean, there's quiet quitting and there's the Great Resignation, but there's also coasting. So coasting is what people do when they just turn up for work, they do the job and they go home. and they don't really care. Quiet quitting, as you said, is people who just leave the job slowly and quietly. And then there's the great resignation, which is where people just one day turn up for work and say, all of these things we've heard about in teaching, especially like you said, after the last 2 years of COVID.
I would like to remind our listeners that at the end of the session, they could always ask questions. They could either share them on the post on LinkedIn, or they could even use their microphones that they can ask you. But I'm sure that lots of people would like to ask you more questions about it. Shall we have a look at the causes? I mean, what causes it?
Yeah.
What is to blame for that?
I think we should ask what, not who, really, because if we start blaming people, I don't know, it's not a positive or helpful path to go down. But what causes it? Well, the first cause is just disheartening experiences. I mean, just experiences that bring you down. Being yelled at by your boss repeatedly for something you've done, for things you don't do, for not being on the same page as everybody else, in the team. I think a feeling of a lack of time when teachers feel like they just don't have enough time to cover all the material. A lack of resources, definitely, when you don't feel like you've got the material that you need, or you're not being supported by the school. Down to a simple thing such as not having enough photocopies or chalk for the board, or just little things can start this. And then there's excessive demands on the part of administration. When the department starts asking you for more and more, we also want you to take part in this meeting. We also want you to be here for this. We want you to meet these parents on this day. You have to give this presentation. Extracurricular activities, which are often unappreciated and aren't sometimes reflected in our pay either, which is another reason. I mean, we don't do our job for pay, but we do it to make a living. And if we're paid so poorly that we feel our work is, well, not respected financially, we start to question what we're doing and think, well, why am I wasting my time? I could be making more money doing something else, with our skills. But I think the most important, maybe I should mention, is something we call compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue is when you run out of emotions, you run out of compassion. Because remember, willpower and patience are a limited bucket. Once you've run out of late patience, that's it. The smallest thing can set you off afterwards. And so the emotional demands can really get to you. I'm sure all of us feel it before Christmas time and before Easter time and before the summer break. A sort of a feeling of being drained emotionally. I know I do. And what usually happens to me is the Saturday after I break up from school, I usually get ill. A couple of days, the Saturday or the Sunday after school, I'd normally come down with something. And I'm sure it's because of these demands. One other reason, Dimitri, it's caused, I think it's because of inadequate training. Especially during the last 2 years, for example, teachers were thrown in to teaching online without adequate training, without adequate resources, not knowing how to operate certain platforms, or just a fear of technology, which is completely normal if you haven't had any training. Or if you haven't had training in the behavioral problems we're meeting nowadays. Because again, I don't know about you, but teaching kids, we meet more and more behavioral problems, either because they've always been there and we just didn't recognize them, or because they are emerging more and more for whatever reasons. But we don't always have the right training to deal with them. And again, that can cause burnout. So in essence, some or all of these things can just cause you to lose your confidence. Yeah? Do you see where I'm getting?
I've noted down the little things that you mentioned, which is true. I mean, it's the little things that might make your life difficult every day. And some people might actually even suffer from panic attacks, because
Yes.
if you can't really deal with minor issues, this is a source of anxiety. And I understand that feeling. My daughters keep complaining that at the end of June or early July, whenever I go to the beach with them, I won't go into the sea. I will just lie on the beach doing nothing, feeling exhausted. And it's true. That's how most of us feel when school is closing. And yes, we've got plenty of time, but the question is, do you have enough energy to make the most of it?
Yeah.
Now, since you talked about the causes, let's talk about the effects. What's the result of all this fatigue and the burnout?
Well, it's huge. I mean, it's huge. First of all, let me divide it into a few different areas. I mean, there's the huge impact it has, first of all, on you as a teacher. There's the impact it has on your family and friends around you. And there's the impact it has on your students. I mean, the impact on you is that, you've stopped having caring and considerate relations with other people. You are unable to be kind and receptive and caring and patient with others. And that can show up, in simple things like one of my friends complains that he has all the patience in the world when he's teaching, but as soon as he gets back in the car to drive home, he drives very aggressively because he's got no patience left. And then, of course, that has an impact on your family and your friends. If you've been drained by work and you're resenting having to go to work every day, then your family and friends aren't going to, do well out of this experience. And maybe most importantly, I don't know, is the impact on the students. I mean, I'm sure we all remember when we were kids, I certainly do, a teacher who was older, jaded, had lost their faith in the system, and was just phoning it in, as we say, just turning up for work and doing the very bare minimum and just didn't really care. I had a maths teacher like that, and I hated maths, because this teacher just didn't seem to care. He just did the bare minimum, didn't care what the students did. It was a joke. It really was ridiculous. And in the end, I realized this guy was suffering from burnout. He'd had enough. And so that's the problem. Our students see us fail. Yeah.
Um, and it's true. I mean, when we're talking about young learners, we are the superheroes,
Yeah.
probably very close to their mum and dad, the position that the mum and dad have.
Good
And
point.
it's very disappointing. But there must be something that we can do. I mean, obviously, there's not a magic wand, but there must be some kind of cure for that.
Yeah, but you're not going to like it. Yeah, there is. There is a cure. Absolutely, there's a cure, Dimitri. I mean,
Has it got a bitter taste?
it has a little bit for some. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so what's the cure? Well, first of all, there's things teachers can do for themselves, but there's things administration should be doing for the teachers as well. Let's start with that. First of all, for administration, they need to be aware of this. I mean, they need to know that there is such a thing as burnout. And even if they don't really care, they should realize that they're going to lose because they've invested in these teachers, they've spent the time hiring them, they've spent the time training them, they've spent the time, creating a relationship with them, and then the teacher quits, or brings down part of the school with them if they have a severe burnout, a breakdown. So it's in the administration's interest to actually take this seriously. And you can get more from your teachers if you make sure they don't suffer from this, of course. So what admin needs to do is make sure there's open communication with the teachers. So a sort of a shopping list or a menu might be, first of all, teachers need to make sure they can talk about what a good school looks like. Make sure they know what good teaching looks like and ask the teachers. And then, having addressed that, perhaps the teacher can be asked, are there any obstacles to achieving that? And so the teachers can talk about what they feel are the obstacles to good teaching. Ask them what's needed so that they can do better, do their job well. A simple thing like, providing the best resources for them can really go a long way. Whatever they do talk about, whatever the teachers do say, you need to respond quickly if you're in administration. You need to show that you're taking them seriously, listening to their opinion, and doing something about it. Which brings me to the next point, which is teachers need to be allowed autonomy. I mean, they need to feel that their independence is honored. I mean, we do work alone in the classroom with the students, obviously, but we're kind of alone out there. So we need to be independent. And we've all had training, we've all studied in order to become teachers. To whatever degree, we've always studied. And so we need to, or admin needs to recognize the intelligence of teachers and allow them to make decisions, give them some autonomy. People always perform better when you give them autonomy, when you give them some responsibilities of their own and let them deal with it as they think is the right way to deal with it. So, for example, trying to recreate a factory at school where everybody has to be on page 24 on Tuesday just isn't going to work. Teachers are going to resent that because there's always going to be some teachers who focus on one thing and not another. We're all different after all. It's not a factory experience. And we can't treat teachers like factory employees. Okay, obviously, you're going to have to re-examine the compensation scheme as well, the salaries of teachers. As I like to say, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And yeah, if you don't pay teachers much, they're not going to invest that much. Despite how much they care, at the end of the day, they will lose faith. There's a lot more to say about administration. The problem is that administration have their own agenda sometimes, and it doesn't involve really caring as much or devoting as much of their time to the teacher's well-being as it should. So we teachers need to take responsibility for our own well-being. Now, how can we do that? Well, lots of things you can do. First of all, take time off. When you do get time off, make sure you're taking time off. And so even on a day when you get a weekend off, or you get a holiday, a day off holiday, and you get a long weekend, make sure you strengthen that work-life barrier. Don't take your job home with you. Yes, it may mean that you don't get everything done on the weekend. You may mean that, okay, you don't do the greatest job possible when you get back on Monday morning. But sometimes a teacher's 100% is everybody else's professional 120%. Because as I said before, I think teachers are perfectionists. We always expect the very best from ourselves and forget that even if we do 99%, it's pretty damn good. To go further, we need to make sure we practice some self-care. And by that, I mean eating well, getting enough sleep, managing our energy, managing our time. Exercise can do a lot of good, and at least dancing, because when you dance, you feel so much better. Singing in the shower if you can't dance, singing in the car, just do something to relieve the tension. Try and find a hobby. Take up something new. Find something else to do. And it doesn't matter what it is, how crazy it is, but make sure it's not something that's completely connected with teaching. Don't think, oh, I can use that in my teaching. Try and find something you can do that isn't to do with teaching. I personally tried scuba diving 3 years ago and tried that as a sort of a relief from teaching and found it had nothing to do with teaching, although again, like all teachers, I took some lessons home with me, but it really was very different. Try something new. Try and develop some me time, in other words, and try and say no to administration sometimes. They may not like it, but at the end of the day, for them, if they start learning that we're going to say no to excessive demands, and if they don't accept it, well, you may think, oh, well, my job, job security, but there are plenty of schools out there who offer better conditions, lots of them. If you can't find one, I'll share a couple of stories. There's one other solution I have, which is if you're working in a school that just isn't respecting you and you need to find some way around the situation, practice what I like to call creative insubordination. That means you're not disagreeing directly with what the school has told you to do, but under the radar and quietly, without the students knowing and without admin knowing, do your own thing. Let me share an extreme example of that. I once worked in a frontisterio when I was very young here in Greece, which had microphones in the school, in all these classrooms, and the boss would listen in on the teachers. But when the boss listened in, there was a click of the microphone. So the students knew he was listening, and the students found it made them very nervous. They may have enjoyed their speaking lesson with me, but suddenly when they heard that click, they stopped talking. I realized that this was not doing my students any favors, and to be honest, it was stressful for me as well. I was a young teacher, feeling like I was constantly being monitored. So can I share what I did? And this is 23 years ago, so I don't think I'm in any danger anymore. One day I arrived early for class, and I took my shoe off, and I knocked open the microphone, got a screwdriver and just disconnected one of the wires, and then fixed it back together again, so that we never had that problem again. And the school owner wasn't really that concerned, didn't bother doing it, didn't know what was happening, and for the rest of the term, I never got listened to again. My students seemed to have realized that we weren't being listened to, and I suspect they knew what I'd done. Of course, I didn't tell them, but that's what I call creative insubordination, doing something that creates some, let's say, autonomy for yourself. I'm sure we've all seen Dead Poets Society, and that's an example of it found right there and then. If I can just take one more minute of your time, Dimitri, I think there's one more thing which really helps me, which is try to find purpose in what you do. Try to think about why you teach and hold on to that. Let that be your guiding light. I was lucky enough about 10 years ago to discover my purpose, and it really helped me greatly. My purpose is to make sure that my students never miss an opportunity. And because of that, I feel rewarded and valued. And my students get back in touch with me because they feel like I do make a difference to their lives. I found that with a clear purpose in my mind, it really helps direct my attentions and it keeps me feeling positive. Try and develop a purpose. Try and realize this is why I do what I do. And it can be, as simple as because I make people happy, because I empower my students, because I help them do things they wouldn't have done otherwise. But whatever it is, try and identify your purpose and start with that. That might be the jewel to hold on to that will keep you going throughout burnout.
I love the creativity part and the purpose part. Let me be the devil's advocate. It's one of the it's part of the role that I really enjoy.
Sure.
Could managers or directors of studies be suffering from burnout too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. Definitely. And that's, I'm not denying that they aren't either, but they also need to appreciate that their staff are. Yeah. They also need to practice all the things I said, which is, turning around to administration above them and saying, no, this is not pedagogical. This is not good for the students. Because management, as you said, good managers of schools tend to be or have been teachers or have some training in education. Yeah. They know what matters. They know what makes a good teacher. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. I have to apologize because there were some technical issues, and at some point, for a moment or two, Um, I just couldn't listen to you, and
Sure.
I can only see one person listening. I'm sure there are many more people
There are
listening,
33.
but fantastic. I thought I saw Effie Kirikakis who wanted to add something to our conversation. I don't know if
Yeah,
well, the
she's
sound has
there.
not
She's
been very
just
helpful
raised
today.
her hand.
Okay, so Effie, would you like to? I think you can unmute your mic.
I can't hear her, but she has raised her hand, Dimitri.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know. I wonder if she can do it. It's a weird day, technology wise.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Do you have? I can't see her question if that's what she's asking. If she's got a question
Yes,
or got a
I
point to
can't see
make.
her question either. All right. Or I don't know if there are any other questions. You can either write them under the event post, or you can unmute your microphones and ask questions directly.
So is that where we see the
I
word
think, yeah.
comments, Dimitri? So,
Yes, that's right. Comments. And I can see Effie's hand, but I can't really. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I can't see any comments. Or maybe Effie could write a question, or she could even try to log out and log in again. Maybe. I think she's gonna try that.
okay.
Um, I don't know if there are any more questions. If people would like to contribute, if they would like to share a similar experience.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm not an expert on the subject. I just have a lot of experience, some experience of the subject from friends and colleagues, and my first qualifications are in psychology. So I've combined that with teaching. And so I know a little bit about this subject. But if anybody knows more or has something to add or contribute or a story, it'd be great to hear something.
All right, I can see that Effie is back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she can try that now. Yep, she's raised her hand again. Effie, can you unmute your mic?
So
I
Dimitri,
think now she can talk. Effie?
so Dimitri, people can't unmute
Mm-hmm.
their mics when they're in the audience. We have to click on their photo, it says.
I
Okay.
did. I have just done. And I think she can do that.
Oh, I just found it.
There
Can
you
you
go,
hear
Effie.
me?
Just a quick call
Thank
out to
God.
Nando Rodriguez. Thank you, Nando Rodriguez. He's just pointed that out to us. Thanks a lot.
That's amazing. All right. Michael, it was amazing. Dimitri's help. Thank you for the chance to speak. Michael, I remember our Tisolaire time,
Yeah.
and it was a very different time. I really loved what you said about teachers giving 120% of ourselves in our teaching. And it's true that when burnout starts, we don't realize it. We often don't realize what's happening. It's part this exact subject is part of my master's thesis,
Ah.
and I'm really really happy that we brought it up today because it seems to be affecting at least two-thirds of the educational environment, teachers, and this is huge. Even UNESCO has started to talk about how to encourage well-being and empowerment in teachers,
Mm.
and it's time we do, huh? Isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, it was my research showed me something that I had never expected. Teaching burnout can even change our teaching practices. Teachers tend to teach to the test. The more they feel tired and exhausted, the more less creative, the less creative they become, as you said. And it also affects our relational ability, the way we relate to students and our colleagues, which is which affects in turn their well-being, the students' well-being. So if we want happy students, we need to start with teachers, with well-being, the well-being of the teachers and their empowerment. So you were absolutely to the point in what you suggested. Like I love the part of creative insubordination. I think a lot of us loved it.
Good. Yeah, I just hope the school owner from which I worked was not listening. Or
Well, I,
anyway,
I am a school owner. Sometimes it's important that we discuss things instead of
oh,
impose things, isn't it?
yes, yeah. Oh, great point, Effie. Yeah,
Yes, yes. Being involved in the decision process makes us all feel that we have a meaning and a purpose for being there. We are involved in many different ways. So I think we need to, in my opinion, we need to focus on empowerment. How can we empower teachers to feel that they matter, to feel that it's okay to take a break, to breathe? We forget to breathe at
um,
times.
Effie, if I may interrupt you, I talked about scuba diving before. You may
Oh,
remember,
yes, you
and
did.
that's interesting because I said that there was one thing I took away from scuba diving, and that was
Mm,
exactly what my scuba diving instructor kept saying to me was keep breathing. Don't forget
yes,
to breathe. And that's the one
yes.
thing I took away from that, which going back to teaching, which is keep
Yes.
breathing. Don't forget to breathe. Yeah, as
Yeah,
well.
because it's the moments that we need breathing more, the moment that we stop, usually hold our breath
Yeah,
when we're stressed, when we're tired, and
literally and metaphorically. Yeah.
yes, true, true, absolutely, absolutely. Um, It's this is Dimitri's amazing, amazing discussion. I think it can take on go on forever. Maybe we can talk about teacher empowerment in the next episode of this.
Mm.
Of course, it goes without saying, you're already invited. I have to apologize about today's technical problems. Apart from teachers, it seems that computers suffer from burnout as well. My computer insisted on not logging on. But it's been a very, very interesting discussion. I'm sure most of us can relate. We can identify with many examples mentioned. I would like to thank Michael very much. I can't really see if there are any more questions. Michael, maybe you can help me with that,
Hmm. I'm just
or
looking
if
now.
or if people have raised their hands.
Uh,
There doesn't seem to be.
there doesn't seem to be. Yeah, I don't see anything either.
Okay.
Good.
There are a lot of hearts, Dimitris.
Well, I would say our heart belongs to Michael Robs, and
Yeah.
I would like to thank
Yes.
him for being with us. Um, Thank you very much for attending, and I'm happy to announce our next two audio events. The first one is on September 25th on another thorn issue. How can teachers promote their work and communicate with parents with
Ooh.
an expert in the field, Natasha Manita? And of course, Effie, you're invited to talk about educator empowerment, which is closely related to what we talked about today.
Mhm.
Hope you're available on October the 2nd.
Let
Great.
me check my get diary right now.
I'll
Yes,
I'll be
yes,
there.
I'd love to. Oh, yes, Michael, together.
You got it. You got it. Looking
Great.
forward to it very much. Great.
Mhm. Mhm.
Dimitri, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mhm.
I would
Thank you,
like to thank
Dimitris. It was
everybody
amazing.
for taking the time to be with us and contribute with your ideas and listen to us. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Hope my computer will have recovered by then. on September 25th at 5 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.